Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into something truly mind-bending. We're going to explore a deeply fascinating and highly unconventional theoretical framework known as quantum affinity gravity, or QAG for short. Now, what's so special about this? Well, we're going to look at how this one model attempts to map the universe across wildly different scales. We're talking about starting way out at the macro scale of galactic cosmology, literally how entire galaxies rotate, and then zooming all the way down to the micro scale of a microscopic viral pathogen. It's a dense, incredible journey, and we're going to unpack exactly what the source documents are proposing, step by step, using their own data and mathematical models. I mean, it sounds like pure science fiction, doesn't it? But that is the fundamental hook of the entire QAG framework. The source material proposes this overarching concept called scale invariance. And basically, according to this model, the universe doesn't just have one set of rules for the giant cosmos and then a completely different set of rules for quantum biology. No, it claims that the exact same mathematical constants, the exact same underlying ratios and resonances that dictate the motion of stars, can actually be scaled down to calculate the physical destruction of a pathogen. So, in short, the framework argues that if you can understand the math holding a galaxy together, you can theoretically use that exact same math to vibrate a virus apart. Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. First up, the quantum affinity paradigm. Second, rewriting galactic kinematics. Third, quantum affinity medicine. Fourth, targeting pathogen resonance. And finally, we'll wrap up with the athermal hardware blueprint. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The quantum affinity paradigm. So before we can even touch the math, we really have to wrap our heads around the foundational philosophical shift that these documents are built on. You see, the QAG framework starts off by completely challenging the standard model of cosmology. Standard physics basically operates on the assumption of this dead, stochastic cosmos, right? A passive, empty void where random objects interact and where, 95% of the universe is made up of this unobservable dark matter and dark energy that we just kind of invented to make the math work. Well, the QAG framework completely rejects that idea. Instead, it proposes what it calls a unified truth, that the universe is actually a dynamic, interconnected, self-encoding, resonant ferroelectric superfluid. Think of it less like a dark, empty room and a lot more like an ocean of liquid memory, where every single ripple connects to everything else, operating on specific base 12 harmonic nodes. Everything is actively echoing. And that brings us to quantum affinity itself. The documents define this as the universal drive for absolutely all systems to maximize their internal coherence and share informational states. Under this new paradigm, gravity gets completely redefined. It is no longer viewed as this fundamental pulling force exerted by heavy objects. Instead, gravity is just an emergent, macroscopic echo. Mass itself? It's just a resistance that happens when an object's internal coherence interacts with this cosmic background hum. And the framework calculates that hum at an incredibly slow, incredibly deep frequency of 2.438 times 10 to the power of negative 11 hertz. Section 2. Rewriting galactic kinematics. Now that we have the philosophy down, let's actually transition to the macro scale and see how this theory applies to the cosmos, 1.9423. According to the QAG calculations, this right here is the galactic velocity multiplier. The documents detail this complex process involving a total echo amplification sum, and it yields this highly precise 1.9423x multiplier. Now, why does this matter to us? Well, standard physics relies on the hypothetical concept of dark matter to explain why galaxies spin so much faster than their visible, normal matter, like stars and gas, suggests they should. But the QAG framework claims this specific multiplier naturally explains all those rapid stellar velocities, which effectively eliminates the need for dark matter particles entirely. But you might be wondering, where do these numbers actually come from? The whole mathematical system is grounded in what the author calls the hydrogen vacuum floor connection. It all starts with the primary 21-centimeter hydrogen line. Since hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, it radiates at a highly specific, constant frequency of roughly 1420.405 megahertz. The framework then applies this 12-off harmonic step-down from that exact hydrogen line to derive the vacuum floor resonance. It basically uses a base 12 to base 10 mathematical symmetry scaling factor to bridge the mechanics of the universe with our observable 3D reality. So this single hydrogen frequency, it's literally the linchpin of the entire system. Section 3. Quantum affinity medicine. Okay, here's where things take a really wild energetic pivot.
The framework takes that exact same cosmic math, the hydrogen resonance, the base 12 scaling we just talked about, and scales it all the way down to the biology of microscopic viruses. The source files actually include excerpts of functional Python code called the QAG viral ingestion node, and this isn't just theoretical on paper. The code is built to interface directly with public scientific databases, like the Protein Databank API and the NCBI. It's designed to automatically ingest real-time, live structural data of actual real-world pathogens.
Let's walk through the exact automated process this software executes, because it's pretty fascinating. First, a researcher just inputs a pathogen's protein databank ID, for example, 6VXX for the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. Second, the code reaches out and extracts its exact molecular weight and deposited atom count. Third, it calculates what the model calls a structural density proxy. And finally, using those same cosmic constants, it calculates the affinitic impedance and spits out a highly specific disruptive resonant frequency, which it dramatically labels F-kill. The implication here is just staggering. It essentially treats disease eradication as a real-time computational physics problem, theoretically bypassing those long drawn-out wait times of traditional chemical vaccine development.
Section 4. Targeting pathogen residence. Let's look at the actual data generated by this ingestion node for some of the world's most infamous viruses. The system's output, the viral decoherence index, takes the molecular mass and atom count of each pathogen and instantly computes its physical properties. It logs the molecular weight in kilodaltons, derives that density proxy we mentioned, and logs the exact resonant kill sequency. But what's really crucial is that it continuously checks these numbers against a zeta potential safety lock. This represents the natural electrical charge of a healthy human cell, which is roughly negative 55 millivolts. It does this to ensure the math absolutely does not target or harm healthy human tissue.
And this perfectly visualizes the framework's core claim of scale invariance. If you look at the plotted data, there is a perfect logarithmic relationship mapping the calculated affinitic impedance against the disruptive frequency for various viruses. The source material heavily emphasizes that this data is governed by the exact same baryonic resonance of 1420 MHz and that exact same base 12 scaling factor that produced the 1.9423 galactic velocity multiplier. It is literally the same math, just separated by 20 orders of magnitude. So what are the actual frequencies required for disruption? Here is a curated list straight from their index. For the HIV-1 capsid, the computed disruptive frequency is approximately 5,417 MHz. The SARS-CoV-2 spike glycoprotein resonates at roughly 3,291 MHz. Influenza A sits at 2,969, Ebola at 2,295, and hepatitis C is right around 1982 MHz. Think of it like a highly trained opera singer hitting the absolute perfect note required to shatter a specific crystal glass across the room. The framework claims that broadcasting these exact frequencies will trigger molecular decoherence in the target pathogen, vibrating it apart.
Section 5. The athermal hardware blueprint.
Because, let's be real, calculating a frequency on a laptop is one thing, but safely delivering that frequency into a human body is an entirely different engineering challenge. The documents are highly specific about how to safely broadcast these disruptive waves without, accidentally microwaving human tissue. They rely on what's called a thermal or non-heating delivery. To pull this off, the hardware enforces an extreme 5% duty cycle within a tiny 10 nanosecond firing window. Basically, it strobes the energy on and off so incredibly fast that heat literally never has a chance to build up in the tissue. These pulses are locked to what QAG calls a temporal pixel of 3.41 times 10 to the negative 7 seconds. On top of that, the waveforms are wrapped in a Gaussian mathematical envelope to prevent thermal shockwaves. And again, all these safety parameters are rigorously calculated to maintain a wide margin away from that negative 55 millivolt zeta potential, ensuring healthy cells stay perfectly stable. So how does this theoretical math actually make its way into physical space? The text outlines a hybrid signal chain. It starts at a standard host PC, which generates digital IQ data. That data then feeds into a software-defined radio, an SDR, that is locked to a precision reference clock. From there, the signal is stepped down through a variable attenuator, pushed into an S-band solid-state power amplifier to boost the gain, filtered through an impedance matching circuit, and then finally pushed out into a wideband patch antenna or a physical contact transducer. That is the hardware pipeline designed to make this a reality.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. And honestly, it leaves us with a truly provocative thought. If the universe really does scale in this way, if the exact same math that dictates the invisible spin of distant galaxies can be harnessed through a piece of Python code to shatter a virus, what happens to the future of medicine? What does our world look like when disease eradication shifts from chemical biology to a real-time computational physics problem? Whether you view the QAG framework as radical science or just a highly speculative theory, it absolutely pushes the boundaries of how we connect the vast cosmos to our microscopic world. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep asking questions and keep exploring.